to TSC. But right now we're about to enter into a very interesting discussion in this country. We get political parties, especially now with just less than a year to the election. We are having parties and formations, political formations. And these formations are promising Kenyans different things. Today, we intend to look back, at least in the multi-party era that we've had in the country. So far, the promises that have been given, and have we developed a certain consistency when a party takes a particular position, especially economic position, they are able to follow through and deliver on it? That is one. And secondly, what does this mean to the overall development of our politics in this particular country? And we have a heavy panel here today. First of all, on my immediate right is Odhiambo Ramogi, who's been lost from here for a minute, but I'm glad he's back, suited up and ready to have this discussion. At the center, we have Beatrice Cairo, who's a health economist and also public policy expert. Thank you very much for making time to be part of this discussion. And at the far end, we have Kevin Osido, Executive Director, County Governance Watch. Of course, Odhiambo Ramogi will be asking me why I didn't mention his title. He's an economist and many other things. But before we go into our issue of the day and our discussion, Ramogi, I mean, you saw what happened in Homa Bay and what has been happening in our country overall with this political climate that we have. As an economist, when you look at that, what comes to mind?
Well, thank you for having us in the show, Noah, and it's always a pleasure to be here. First of all, let me join the bulk of many other citizens of the Republic who've condemned the violence meted on the Linda Mwananchi leaders and the rally in Homa Bay in particular. But also, I am cognizant of the fact that there was also violence against Fred Matiang'i and the Jubilee Brigade that went to Bomet. There was also violence on the DCP group, led by the Honorable Rigathi Gachagua. And so we've had a weekend full of political activity, but very lacking of political tolerance and not upholding the rule of law and the Bill of Rights. That is most unfortunate. And I'm praying that this will not be the order of the day. The people responsible, the trinity of the CS Murkomen, PS Raymond Omolo, and IG Kanja will do what is necessary to ensure that there is freedom of association, freedom of speech, because that now leads to the whole question you are asking, which is the economic well-being of our people. Homa Bay brought to fore several things. One, the absence of Raila Odinga means politically the whole of Luo Nyanza is a battleground. And anybody who wants to be anything would want to make themselves felt on the ground. But secondly, the reality of marginalization is not lost on us. I think initially the media houses were reporting that the feeder roads, the reason why there was so much dust on the Linda Mwananchi leaders was because they were using feeder roads, farms, and panya roads. And then Millie Odhiambo, bad girl, Gesa, confirmed that, wait a minute, stop misleading the Kenyans. Huh? Those roads they are using, in fact, are the roads of the main roads. Huh? And so there has been marginalization. There has been a joke, when you leave Nairobi and you pass the Muhoroni route, Kevin Osido will not tell you because he's proud. Immediately you get into Kisumu County, you will feel it on the road. You will know you are from government into opposition because of the potholes. And I remember we used that route. We spent a lot of time, you know, because some of these Japanese used cars we use, from Moroni Sugar Company to all the way to the main road now, the Awasi Road.
Yes.
We took 45 minutes because it's a farm. You are actually using a farm, but it is registered as a road elsewhere. So the marginalization in that side of the country is a reality that we must face. And so, well, there is the debate as to whether Luo Nyanza should be in one term or in two term, because the two term people are saying, yes, we've been marginalized, but William Ruto has remembered us. Finally, there are roads being built. There's the ring road being built. There's Rironi Mau Summit, which my brother Osido is very passionate about. They are building piers, they are building stuff all over. Shiny things they are building.
Okay.
And then there are those in one term who are saying, wait a minute, but in the same breath you are building for us roads, you are also killing us. Because Albert Ojwang, a son of Homa Bay, was killed in custody of the government. And so forget about the shiny things first. Let's talk about human rights. Let's talk about the basic infrastructure of the Constitution. And then after that, we can talk about the other things. Okay. The finally, is that we need to have a conversation with our leaders, that your remarks affect how people perceive your area as an investment destination. Those of us who've attended economics class will tell you that poverty is cyclical, that you are poor because you are poor. And so because you are poor, you do not have income. And because you do not have income, you do not have savings. And because you do not have savings, you cannot invest. And because you cannot invest, then you are poor. And so that poverty is cyclical. And then, so the only way to come out of that cyclical poverty is you must bring in capital from outside, externally. And that capital from outside is what we simply call investment. That capital from outside fixes the investment, creates jobs, then there is income, then there is savings, then there is more investment. Okay. Now, for the marginalization to end, for the poverty to end, you need investment. But you cannot attract investment by hiring goons, by talking carelessly in the media, or by attacking people who, because you see, Linda Mwananchi is not just Orengo and Babu Owino. Linda Mwananchi is across the nation. I mean, Kawira Mwangaza is in Linda Mwananchi. She might be interested to have a hotel in Homa Bay. But now, if you are behaving in a manner likely to suggest Homa Bay is only for Homa Bay people only, how are you going to attract investment from the likes of other Kenyans from other parts of the country? So I must say that we must talk to our leaders about attracting investment. You must have the right terms, the right composure of a leader who is willing to engage with anyone from any part of the country to attract investment.
Definitely, very powerful. Beatrice, you are a health economist, and it seems this seems to be very unhealthy for the economy, both your area of specialization. Talk to me about what you make of this political environment that we have.
Thank you again for inviting me. So first and foremost, we are going to subject this country for a whole year of political shenanigans. And what that does to the populace is that people's mental health will actually be most affected, because either where there's going to be a rally that is going to be in your town, people are panicking, will there be goons? So already that puts the body at a state of panic, at a state of fear. And fear is not very conducive, it does not create a good conducive environment for your immunity. So I know those who are medical experts can tell you whenever there is fear, there's a way the immune system tends to be suppressed, and then opportunistic infections occur. Then you also look at the mental torture that people will go through. That mother who thinks the young man has gone for a rally, will he come back home alive? For example, we saw at Ol Kalou, after the by-elections, we saw parents crying that the aftermath of that election in Ol Kalou, their son was shot, all those extrajudicial killings by police officers, or what we call police brutality. So it means every time a young person is walking on the road, they are living in constant fear. And the people associated with those individuals are also living in constant fear. So when people are in that tendency of constant fear, what will happen is that, are people going to do their jobs? Are we going to be productive? Because every time there's a rally that will occur, like today, I come from Nyeri Town constituency. Today there was a rally in my constituency. Already some businesses had halted. Like I have a saloonist who said today there was no much business. Why? Because people are anticipating a rally. They are fearing whether there will be political wars. Will there be tear gas? Will there be police? So when you look at it, that day they have lost money. That is very unhealthy for economy. Now multiply that issue for the next 12 months, you have subjected this economy to that. And remember, even before these 12 months coming on board, like 6 months before, remember even last year, there was also some other by-elections. There was the Mandamano. So since William Ruto took power, it's like we are subjecting this country day in, day out, political activity. When will we work as Kenyans? When will we produce? Okay. Because we have made politics in this country to be extremely competitive. I know the president said it's not a do or die. It is a do or die because politics affects our lives one way or another, but it is in the nature the politics is being done. Why can't we have free and fair elections? Why can't we have institutions that can actually be trusted by Kenyan citizens? Now, people are being told, Mapema do your best, because they saw with William Ruto in the year 2022, he started campaigning 4 years ahead. So William Ruto taught the emerging politicians are very bad manners. So you have to start way early. Otherwise, if you come next year when it's the actual year of the election, you'll find all the, your opponents have taken all the, what are they called? Those people who can do for you campaigning. Okay. So subjecting people to an election period for over a year, and actually I'm looking at it almost like now 2 years, then that is not very healthy for the economy of this country. And we really need to relook at our political economy as a country. Why do we make elections or political position become a do or die thing? We as the electorate, what have we taught these leaders about this election? Because were these positions not being looked at as enriching positions, then I don't think we'll be subjected to all this shenanigans. But because people look at being a political leader as a way of enriching themselves and, putting your hand in the cookie jar, of the public cookie jar, then they become a cut and throat kind of an experience. So now Goonism comes on board, subjects the citizens to such kind of trauma. But they don't care because they will say the end justifies the means. But the end does not justify the means because there will be life lost, there will be businesses lost, there will be traumatized people who may not recover even in the next 5 years after the aftermath, or after the aftermath of the elections. Definitely. And people of Ol Kalou are a very good example to be studied.
Yeah, and it's quite concerning right there. Osito, of course, Ramogi has thrown jabs at you that you fly, most of the times you don't feel the opposition and the government side of the road, But from your observation, because I know you are very active with matters devolution, and a lot of these organizations actually at the county level, that's where these things are coming up. Yeah. Is it a huge concern for you what is happening in this country politically as we speak?
Of course, no, it is. And thank you so much for the invitation. We must be very clear that Kenyans love each other beyond the political mobilization, the political narratives that politicians share, and the kind of conversations that happen between Kenyans when they are among themselves and between Kenyans and their politicians, assuming that those politicians are not Kenyans. The context sets a very sad state of affairs, especially for Homa Bay, because we have seen, of course, these violence eruptions in different parts of the country, particularly because they are politically motivated. But Homa Bay speaks a very sad story, and is a story that if it is not properly managed, then we are seeing a scenario where the 4 Luo Nyanza counties are actually going to be a precipice of what we have seen in Homa Bay. Because I still do not understand why it is so hard for a politician to just pick your phone call and say, you are welcome to Homa Bay. We love you people. We are glad that you've chosen, because your rallies are normally filled up. We know that you send your advance teams in advance, they come there 3-4 days before the main rally. So we are glad because there is going to be business. Our, shops will get monies. Our markets will be flooded because your people are going to be buying things, as opposed to saying, don't come. In fact, we are going to block you. We will not allow. No, it is shameful. Governor of Homa Bay misbehaved, my good friend Mheshimiwa Gladys Wanga, because we have seen videos. She has been reported speaking. Mheshimiwa Kaluma, Homa Bay Town MP, misbehaved. It was disrespectful of the people of Homa Bay. That is not how you engage, even if, politically speaking, you do not agree on issues, because we have seen videos of him speaking in both Swahili, English, and local dialect, speaking to young people. And the youth of Homa Bay are people who know each other, even from those who are either, the goons or the gooners,
The goon drivers.
Yeah, they know each other. They'll tell you that is so-and-so, that is Osido, that is Ochieng, that is Odhiambo, that is Ramogi.
Yes.
Why do you want to pit them against each other? Because you are either 1 term or 2 term. No, it is unnecessary.
Yes.
It is uncalled for. It must not happen.
Definitely.
And as professionals from Luo Nyanza, we will continue to call upon the Council of Elders of the Luo community to consider speaking very seriously around this kind of mobilization, because it is not necessary. When I go home, I keep telling my friends and kinsmen, I ask them, why do you think Mount Kenya is so united? That even if they are fighting, you don't see those wars. You don't see them throwing stones at Okuyu and Okuyu. Rarely will you see those kind of things happening. Why will Odhiambo throw a stone at Osido? And you are there saying, I've been given 200 shillings. Honestly, which brings me to the second issue, that county governments must now begin to take youth empowerment and employment very seriously. It cannot be that we are a country that is, organizing, mobilizing for rallies from Wednesday to Thursday to Friday to Saturday to Sunday. When do these young people work? So counties and governors, led by Mheshimiwa Governor Wanga, must begin to push the national government to secede on county aggregation industrial parks, so that those things work for the good of the people.
Okay.
As County Governance Watch, we've been pushing for 1 county, 1 product. One sad thing that we have seen that is also affecting county economics is that now counties are coming up with small things. In Homa Bay, there is some little flower called mokwa, which is minted in very shallow kind of liters. Why can't we add value? Why can't you add value to something that Homa Bay is good at, so that we expand employment opportunities now for the youth who are being mobilized by the politicians?
Okay.
So that we give the young people an opportunity to say, by the way, if you hire me to go and do whatever you want to do, if I sit in my kinyozi for a whole day, I will get 1,800 shillings.
Okay.
So can you match it up? So if it is, you want to give me 200, I sit in my place, I'll get 1,800, give me 4,000 shillings. Then we see the premium that politicians are willing to cost for this kind of nonsense that we are seeing. It is not, we are not happy about it, because the same thing is happening in Homa Bay. It will happen in Migori. It will happen in Siaya, where I come from. We will not allow it to happen in Kisumu. And our political leaders, honestly, please show some respect to the electorate. You are called honorable members. Be honorable. That title means something, Noah. So I believe that there is a lot that can be said about what happened in Homa Bay. Okay. 1 year down the line, as we head towards the elections, I think we are talking about 356 days now. Honestly, what we are seeing cannot be left to go like that. And sometimes I shudder. The third point is our institutions of governance. This constitution has given us independent offices. Why is it so easy to send 18 Subarus? That's what I hear happened after Mheshimiwa Kagushia. And Homa Bay Town MP is still gallivanting in town, making press conferences. Why can't he also be summoned by NCIC so that he can show cause? Because failure to rent serious punishment to this kind of narratives is what is becoming an excuse to every politician. Okay. That I can say whatever I want to say, I can behave in whatever manner I want to behave, I will be summoned, I will go and say whatever I want to say, I will be fined 1 million shillings. It is an excuse. I heard the chair of NCIC, my good friend, the bishop, saying we are analyzing videos. You know, we have analysts who are still looking at all this so that we can tighten the... It is not necessary. You are an independent commission. Just call somebody and say, the people are unhappy because of what you said. As a commission, this is what we are going to do. We are fining you. We are barring you. If we see you in any other rally, we will liaise with IEBC to block you, so that IEBC can also become as independent as what the Constitution envisioned. Definitely. We cannot have excuses, Noah, as a country, because failure to deal with these issues right now, 3 things will happen. One, no Kenyan will wake up to go and vote. True. So we are going to experience a voter apathy. IEBC is talking about of almost 40 million registered voters. Where will they come from? If we are going to be voting for people already mobilizing us to violence. Number 2, we are going to have shoddy leaders who will be abusing the electorate and saying mutadu. Number 3, we will have institutions that cannot be able to do anything, including the IEBC, that is the electoral management body for our country. Okay. So it is a call that we are making, that the leaders need to act respectful, honorable, and also ensure that the environment you're operating in is an environment where it makes it also easy for those who are not in your rallies to feel comfortable as Kenyans. Okay. When you're on the roads, allow everybody to pass. Don't block them. Let people move on with their lives.
That's true, Osido.
Sure.
That's true. And I love the call to action right there. People, the bodies that are supposed to be intervening, they need to step up. Yeah. I think many have been called out, and few are stepping up as they should, at the rate that they should. But coming back to our discussion today, there is People's Party of Kenya. That is where the focus is. And let's take a look at Ndindi Nyoro outlining some of his vision for this country. Then we unpack after. Listen in.
We must, from January of 2028, deliver free basic education and that which is free. And we'll start that with our senior secondary schools. Of the 3.5 million Kenyans and learners in our senior secondary schools, we only require an additional 35 billion Kenya shillings. My proposal is as follows: that NGCDF will contribute 10 billion shillings into that kitty. The equitable share of our counties, because they also give bursaries, they also contribute 10 billion Kenya shillings. And that issue is that the national government to give in 15 billion Kenya shillings. 35 billion Kenya shillings is enough to give all school-going learners in our senior secondary schools free education, including meals. I have looked at the amount of money we collect in our healthcare system, in whatever name you call it, the previous one of NHIF and the current one. And whatever we say, whatever we promise, the point of the matter is that there is a funding gap. And my proposal is as follows: that starting the year 2028, the amount of money Kenyans are contributing into NSSF, ile pensions, ya retirement, we have that percentage. We reduce it by 50%. That extra 50% reduction goes into healthcare, and that will add into our healthcare system an extra 40 billion shillings ambayo itapea wa Kenya afya mwafaka na yenye hawatakuwa wanarudi kwa mfuko kulipa.
All right, there you have it. Free senior secondary education, food. There are quite a number of issues that our Honorable Ndindi Nyoro has outlined. I was just looking at the party slogan for the People's Party of Kenya. Sauti ya wa Kenya. Yeah. Then the Democracy for the Citizens Party, that is DCP, their slogan is Skiza wa Kenya. There's a lot of sounding here, and kuskiza na sauti, you know, which is amazing. But Ramogi, looking at this, and maybe walk us a little bit back in history, because when we look at Ndindi, even that setup, it reminds me of 2022, thereabout pre-2022, the better, you know, that is UDA plan, bottom-up economic transformation model and the launch. It was, you know, people around and you outline your point, very professional. But the question is where we are politically. First of all, many parties are coming up. I'm pretty sure, I don't know whether DCP did theirs, outlining what they intend to do. But are we sort of improving, getting better with not only the messaging bit of our politics, but implementation, especially of these promises? Because again, we are coming from an era of in 6 months' time. Right. You know, and nothing was happening. What exactly, how do you deduce this, all this sort of structured approach of, you know, outlining the vision for these parties?
Well, let me say I am really impressed by Ndindi Nyoro's speech yesterday. Whether you support the man or not, he is attempting to shift the conversation from just one term to 2 term to what is it that we can do for our country, clearly articulating the problem statement and his proposed solutions. Moving forward, I don't think it will be sufficient to you know, to just say 1 term or 2 term. I know there's a section of Kenyans who do not trust the messenger. In fact, I saw the Honorable Methu saying another wheelbarrow party has been launched, alluding to the fact that Ndindi Nyoro is merely an offshoot of ODM, of UDA. In all honesty, as an economic observer, really I don't see a big difference between DCP and PPK here, Ndindi and Rigathi. Because if anything, Moses Kuria has told us Rigathi also has a deal with Ruto. Ndindi may have a deal with Ruto. Me, what I'm looking at is what is on the table for Kenyans. And when I hear what Rigathi is saying, he's very good at giving us intelligence reports, which is good, but not for me. When I hear what Ndindi is saying, I'm comparing the two, and I'm thinking Ndindi is making more sense to me as a Kenyan than the intelligence reports that my senior Rigathi is giving Kenyans. And so for me, I think it's progressive. And irrespective of who's spoken, I appreciate the thought process that went into the conversation that Ndindi Nyoro has begun. Let me highlight the areas that I agree with him, and then we can move it from there. I think anybody who's taken time to study our economy as it is right now there are a few things that we generally agree on. One is the question of human capital. Free education is a necessity. It's no longer a luxury. It is what Kenyans want, it is what Kenyans need, it is what must be delivered by the next administration. So free education and training on one end, and on the other hand is universal health coverage. That is non-negotiable. And I am sure when the alternative government give their position, that will be there. When Linda Mwananchi give their position, that will be there. Because anybody who studies this economy will tell you those things are immediately necessary. The second thing that I agree with him on, so he highlighted those ones very articulately. The second thing that I agree with him on is the need for jobs. We do not have a young people or a bulging youth problem. We have a youth opportunity. You know, in the matrix of the factors of production, we are blessed with labor and labor in excess. If then we created an opportunity where there is manufacturing and this labor can be used, I think we can create sufficient jobs. And Ndindi Nyoro highlighted that ever so articulately. And so there I agree with him. I also agree with him that agriculture has been a necessary sector in this country that we cannot ignore and must continue advancing. The areas that I probably might differ with the honorable member for Kiharu is one, on the social aspect, his approaches to funding. I would differ significantly as a student of economics. And then there is the whole question of him saying jobs we must prioritize tourism and hospitality. I grew up in Mombasa, and even in the heat where tourism was doing very well, you could see people jobless for like 6 months, and they are either earning at 10%, 20% of their salary, or zero salaries in that period. Until now, we go back to the peak area. So while tourism is necessary and it's a beautiful thing for the investor, for job creation as a tool for job creation, I don't think I want us to focus on that too much, having seen that trauma with my own eyes in Mombasa. Now, the second thing, let me come back to the funding models, where the rubber meets the road. He proposes that we use half the pension money to fund health. Now, health in this country, we need around 400 billion. It's 350 to 400 billion annually to make sure that we provide UHC, universal health coverage. Of this, SHA provides about 90 billion. Last year it provided around 90 billion. So that brings it down to what the gap is 310. From the 310, health is a devolved function, so the devolved county governments provide 133 billion. So if you remove 310 minus 133 billion, you remain with something in the area of 180 billion. From this, the government, you know, from its shift, provides around 50 billion. And so from 180, you deduct 50 billion, you remain with a gap that we've been scratching our heads over for years of how to fill, of about 130 billion. Now, the pensions that we have in this country amount to 285. Half of that is about 140 or 142.5, as it were. So his plan is workable because the gap is 130 and what he's proposing we get from the pensions is 140. So really, it's workable. But now as an economist, I come back and I ask myself a few questions. One is, as a country, we have a problem of low savings. And right now, the only things that are saving us in terms of having some sufficient savings is the pensions on one hand, and on the other hand is the SACCO. William Ruto is coming for the SACCO money ever so aggressively, and many circles are now worried because they are afraid the government is coming for their members' money for some development agenda. And now Ndindi is coming for the pensions, and that makes us wonder where does that leave us as a country as regards savings? But that is the macro problem. The micro problem is you have, the Gen X who are going to retire, those ones are not a big problem. The millennials are many. The Gen Zs, when they retire, are many. But now you're going to have retirees with very little money because they were provided for health, but they have very little money in their retirement. So this means there is very little consumption happening because they have little money. This means, you see, there's what we call the LCH, the life cycle theory, the hypothesis, that says that in your youth, what you are doing is you are borrowing. You are borrowing from your parents, you're borrowing from the government, you're borrowing from the rest of us. In your midlife, what you are doing is you are working and saving. You need to earn money, save it. In your old age, what you are doing is you are just spending. Money is not a problem, or should not be a problem. If in your old age, then we expose you in such a way that you do not have money to spend, we have exposed you too much. So while it is a workable problem, it is a workable solution, it exposes us to bigger risks, macro and micro risks. The final thing, as I would say, is on the education funding, where Mheshimiwa is proposing that we take money. He's talking about taking some money from CDF, money from NGAF, and money from central government to bridge the gap of 35 billion. This is good, but he needs to take a macro approach at solving education. You cannot look at just secondary education and assume you've solved the problem. Where I sit, I no longer see families struggling to take their children to secondary school. And I don't know any family, really, and I am very well connected both in Nairobi and Nyumbani. I have not seen a family that is struggling to take their child to secondary school. I have, however, seen several families that are struggling to take their children to university. And so if we are talking about education, we must be honest with Kenyans and say, no, we want free education from ECD. ECD, no. All the way to TVET and university. And so that you do not take up the problem of secondary education, the micro, and then ignore all the others. Okay. We must have free education from ECD all the way to the university. And it is doable. And so that we do not just say free basic education. There is where I would differ with Mheshimiwa. Otherwise, I would congratulate him. I think he has shifted the conversation materially, and he has done very well.
Definitely. Beatrice Cairo, what do you make of the hits and misses from this, and overall, what value are we getting? Is it more of talk, or are we advancing in our political engagement that we can see fruit, and even as time goes by, ideology attached to some of these promises?
All right. So what I would make of Didi Nyoro yesterday is that I will call them policy aspirations. You know, when you look at healthcare, what he was aspiring, education, what he was aspiring, manufacturing, what he was aspiring. But he did not address extensively how financially executable are those policies. Because for every policy you create, or for every idea you have to always think, how will I fund it? So I was expecting him, for each sector he was talking about, what would be the cost of those policies he's talking about? Who pays for that? Remember when we had William Ruto promising us heaven on earth in 2022, we as Kenyans were not keen to ask him who pays. Now every Kenyan is crying because either your pay slip is sliced or some tax is added here, KRA is on your neck. We didn't ask the question, who pays? The third thing we need to ask ourselves, what gets displaced? So right now, for salaried people, some money of theirs got displaced because when 2.75 of your salary goes to SHA, 1.5 of your salary is going to, housing levy. And then you find because of some taxes added here or for commodities, you have to spare money here and there. Then it means there's some amount of money that got displaced, whereby the household income has to either compensate or re-strategize how they're going to continue living and thriving. Number 4, what measurable economic return will Kenyans receive? For example, he says he's going to ensure every learner will go to school. We need to sit and ask ourselves, have we ever had educational reforms in this country? Because we could be manufacturing students, but are they viable for the economy? For example, we could be taking someone to do bachelors of forestry. I'm not saying there's something wrong with doing bachelors of forestry, but the question is, within our economy, would we need such? So they need to reevaluate the degree programs that we are having within our universities so that every coin that we are spending on those programs, are they viable for our market? Maybe, for example, China is now shifting in educating people about AI, technology. They scrapped off some courses that were being trained in the university. So why should we keep putting a student 4 years in the university to study forestry, and the forests we have in this country are very few, and you're churning 200 people for bachelors of forestry? So we really need, I was expecting him to come and say, we are going to restructure our education system. I would like to correct Ramogi and tell him, people are struggling to take their children to secondary school. Me coming from Nyeri Town constituency, you should see the kind of harambes I'm receiving when people are reporting for the grade 10. Why? Remember, the CBC program is different from the 844 system. I was expecting Didi Nyoro to come and tell us how will he change CBC. Currently, it's becoming a very expensive venture. And when I look at this 35 billion he's talking about, I am not very sure it will be adequate enough for the CBC program. Remember, the kind of books these students have to utilize cannot be handed down to another student. So already the cost burden is being heaped on their parent. So I was expecting him also to address on that issue. When you look at, for example, when you talk about NSSF, now remember, healthcare is an expenditure. Healthcare is not like you'll get an ROI, because remember, the NSSF is a pensioner savings. He's expecting by the time I'm retiring, I'll find my money has either grown and I'm able to get a return. So when you tell me you're going to take 40 billion and spend it on healthcare or treatment, then how do you get an ROI for that amount you have put it in there? So I was expecting him in a way to restructure. Remember, we in Africa, we cannot afford curative medicine. It is damn expensive for us. Why? I was expecting him maybe for healthcare, he would have said there will be more manufacturing of pharmaceuticals, more manufacturing of traditional medicine that we have locally. Maybe it would reduce our cost of treatment. But I did not hear him discussing any of that. So you realize curative is very expensive. Then where would you fund more? You'd fund more on preventive. So I was expecting him how much money of this 40 billion would be going for preventive care, diagnostics. Where we really need it more. Then on the issue of also centralizing of the human resource, because he talked about teachers transfer, and then he also talked about Health Service Commission. First and foremost, I would like to correct Didi Nyoro. He should not call it Kenya Doctor and Healthcare Workers Service Commission, because unless you're telling me a doctor is not a healthcare worker, it should actually be the Healthcare Workers Service Commission, because a doctor is also a healthcare worker. Otherwise, what will happen? That segregating of cadres. And remember, the modern model of healthcare is patient-centered. We moved away from doctor-centered kind of healthcare system. Now we have what we call a patient-centered kind of healthcare system. So what Didi Nyoro should have sat down with individuals is should have done a needs assessment. What healthcare needs do our Kenyan citizen needs? If there is a rise of metabolic conditions, if preventive medicine the way to go, so that we focus on investing more on that and we reduce a lot of money being wasted in curative.
Okay.
And then on the other issue of, for example, teachers transfer, for example, remember, when you start centralizing human resource, what will happen? People will start giving excuses why they'll be in Nairobi. So what will happen to those marginalized communities? I know he said Homa Bay is marginalized. So you can imagine nobody would want to work in Homa Bay or want to work in Mandera. So what I was expecting from him is maybe introduce incentives. What incentives will you provide to retain those teachers in those communities that are actually marginalized, so that those Kenyan citizens in those zones that are called marginalized, they also don't, they're not bypassed within the economic system. But I would want to say this. In Kenya, we have a production problem. And this production problem has been rooted in our colonial system. Dindi Nyora, I would advise him to sit down and study history way back to almost the year 1800s, 1700s. And you will realize that colonial economic system is what was transferred to the current kind of our economic system. So remember, the colonial kind of setting of system is that an African should not manufacture, an African should not do value addition. So when you even look at the laws that have been put in parliament, when you nitty-gritty read those laws, you'll realize it prohibits you to do value addition. It prohibits you to be a manufacturer. So what we have been reduced to is be a laborer, or be a producer of raw materials, or be a consumer. Those three things. So when he talks about tourism and service industry, what does that? There's no manufacturing anywhere. There's nowhere you're going to tell us that you're going to give incentive in terms of banks are going to give very low interest rates for capital so that Kenyan youths can start cottage industries and manufacture locally from where they are at. Unless he says the kind of parliamentarians that are going to go to parliament, they are going to repeal any law that inhibits any African to do value addition from their homes. Remember, right now, if you try and mine iron, if you, let's say you go to your shamba and you decide to take that rock and you start doing, value addition to that rock to produce maybe a knife or anything, government will be at your door knocking at you. You see, we need to rethink about our industrial policy. We need to rethink about our manufacturing policies. It is our laws that tie that rope around our necks that is inhibiting us in terms of production. So unless we look at the regulations that have been set in place, repeal those regulations that inhibit many people to enter the market. For example, why do you need to charge people to register a company? Yet KRA on this other end is still going to take 30%. So let company registration be free so that even a young man with no money can register a company, start doing business, then tax me when the company is actually making profit. But when you over-license everything, you make everything, it's a license, it's a license, it's a license. Even getting an ID, they were making it a license. I was expecting him to repeal such things like getting a birth certificate. Why should we be licensed to get a birth certificate, surely? Why should we be licensed to get an ID? Why should you be licensed to, to put in your idea? So if all these barriers, entry to the market, is where our problems are, I wish he had addressed that. But he did not literally address it. He just talked like World Economic Forum's kind of a guy, and just painting it all rosy and all green. But when you sit down and go deeper into analyzing every statement he said, there's nothing he has corrected about our colonial injustices our actually economic injustices that have been done against the Kenyan citizens. And I know he said that poverty is cyclical, but I usually say poverty is man-made, because by the time the white man came to Africa, there was no poor African. We're able to feed ourselves, we're able to clothe ourselves, we're able to maintain a system, and no African was dying hungry. But when the colonial government came on board, look at us. Now we have homeless people. Now you come and tell us about affordable houses. Now we have chokoras and people sleeping around, they have no shelter. No African. And that's why you realize when they were doing public participation, one Kenyan asked, Nani hana kwao? Because it was unheard of that there was any African used to sleep without a house. But currently, because of the economic injustices that were introduced to us, then we are having homelessness, people sleeping hungry, joblessness, and also finding that in the long run, then only a few are enriched. Then last but not least, he would have addressed why 2% of the population in this country control 98% of resources. That is already skewed wealth distribution. So we need to focus on how do we redistribute the wealth in this country. Remember, land is a factor of production. So we realize there are a group of few people who have amassed a lot of land, which can be used for productive gain. And that is why when few people are the ones owning such huge tracts of land, the rest of the individuals, they're left with very little pieces of land. You cannot do massive manufacturing. You cannot do massive agricultural processing. You cannot do value addition, because tell me, what will you do with an 8th piece of land to start saying that now you're going to do agro-processing? So we need to rethink about various reforms, especially reforms in the factors of production. The day we'll get a president who will focus on the factors of production is when job creation will be created. It is not the role of government to create jobs. It is the role of the citizens to create jobs. It's not the role of government to do business. It is the role of the citizens to do business. The role of government is to protect the citizen, protect the property of the citizen, and protect the freedoms of the citizens. So ensuring there's a conducive environment for the citizens to do business. But the kind of governance that we are seeing is that government needs to do business. And the moment government does business, it will be patronage, political patronage. Those who are close to power are the ones going to access these resources. But when we have a regime that will come on board and empower the people, where it says, you do business, our work is to protect you, protect your property, protect your rights, then that is the day we shall see no joblessness anywhere in this country.
Definitely.
Yes.
And I'm glad you address those overarching issues. I mean, you mentioned land. Osido, the Ndungu report is untouched. I think it's one of those documents that nobody wants to open. But from what you've observed with Ndinde, that conversation shift, what does it mean, the way we do politics? And even looking back, because we've had that in 2022, we had that in 2017. You know, even in 2013, the brothers, you know, with red ties. How do you...
Matching red ties.
Matching red ties, and I see Osido is in one. So what do you make of this?
Of course, I liked how Mheshimiwa Ndindi Nyoro began the speech, because he acknowledged that he's been part of this process. He said that I was one of the main campaigners in, the UDA, Kenya Kwanza government. We traversed this country. I was part of the strategic team, etc. We did so many of these things. But I honestly thought that he missed some very fundamental areas that Kenyans who have been observing him over the years, because he's a gentleman who has actually carved his own niche to be able to profile himself as a young, pragmatic economist, young, pragmatic legislator economist, or economist legislator, because he sits in parliament, is able to see from many edges and ends what most Kenyans are not able to see. In fact, even up to having served as, a very senior leader in the budget committee. So I thought that connecting the political experience, the context of budget making, and the entire process of budget making of Kenya, and what my good friend Dindi was presenting yesterday, there were certain gaps that I thought he probably would have helped Kenyans to understand. For example, one, why is it so difficult for us to stick to the budget? When we say, for example, that education has 781.3 or 2 billion, and that we are capping TSC 406 billion, we are having 54.6 billion for free day secondary education, 30 billion for JSS, and say 56.7 billion for HELP, and 30 billion for university scholarships. He failed to respond to the question about why it is impossible or difficult for us to budget and send that money to schools for capitation. Where is the gap? Because those are the critical things I believe that most governments struggle with. When you have that huge amount of money budgeted for, even if you do a supplementary budget, what goes on in between? I thought that Mheshimiwa would have been better placed to answer to those questions. Why we do not have teachers employed, yet we have budgeted money for TSC. When the president says we are employing 100,000 teachers, where are these teachers? And why are they struggling with things like promotion? And so an insider like Mheshimiwa Ndindi Nyoro would have done much more better to be able to answer to that question about budget reforms and budget review. So before I go to the details of what I think he missed in the education sector, let me pick up a second miss. Kenya has 48 governments. We have one national government and 47 county governments. The presentation by Mheshimiwa yesterday rather looked or made assumptions that we are a one unitary government, like is the national government led by President William Ruto. We have 47 governors. I shuddered to, hear or pick aspects where, for example, Schedule 4 of the Constitution became stronger in the speech of Mheshimiwa yesterday. I didn't hear about full transfer of functions because we have more than almost 100 billion shillings that is still held by national government that should go to county governments. Now, that amount of money is stifling service delivery at the counties. So you profile health at the national government, but health is fully devolved. Health is a fully devolved function. You profile agriculture at the national level, but agriculture is fully devolved, including agriculture policy. I normally tell people in different fora that national government has no business engaging in agriculture as a function. You profile affordable housing, but housing by constitution is fully devolved, you see. So the Mheshimiwa Ndindi would have helped us understand why is it so difficult for us to release these functions to counties so that we see counties, despite the challenges that they are facing, being empowered to be able to address critical concerns around service delivery, around resources following functions, etc. The third thing that I think was amiss is he was very bold to, for example, say that we are struggling with debt, but Mheshimiwa Ndindi Nyoro has been one of the greatest champions of a debt-free Kenya. In his presentation, he failed to help us understand why our legislators, that he is one of them, keep increasing the debt ceiling of this country. We are doing -2, I think it's 12 trillion right now, way beyond what is in the books of law, in its letter and the spirit. Why was it so difficult to explain to us that, by the way, there are some politicians like Mheshimiwa Jimmy Wanjigi, among others, and a few of us in the civil society who are speaking about this, but we know for a fact that Ndindi Nyoro has been one of the biggest champions of a debt-free Kenya. So what is this new policy that is seeking around reforms to be able to actually profile and push for that debt-free Kenya, And then what is the government doing right now that is feeling uncomfortable with, that when he now ascends to power, I was a little bit perturbed that he proposed a party at the end of the speech. In my view, if I was to advise, that should not have happened, because you see now, others are already saying, as Ramogi said, that this is all one arm of UDA. We know that this is another part of Linda. We know this is happening. I thought that because Ndindi is one gentleman that Kenyans have known to really speak truth to power when it comes to economic issues, economic policies. He is among the few faces, friends of the president, who went before Parliamentary Budget Committee and has spoken about two budget policies, 2024, 2025, 2026, 2026, 2027. He made proposals there, and they are proposals that were quite progressive in my view. But his speech yesterday failed to strengthen what he has been talking about, and then he told us, give me a sabbatical. When I resurface from wherever I'm going to speak to the nation. And he spoke to the nation, but the speaking, in my view, failed to connect the many things, very many nice things that he's been talking about, to what Kenyans actually feel, which is what I thought probably would have made us be very much interested to listen to him yesterday. Of course, now we know that part of his financing proposals were very progressive. But on education, because I think that's one of the clips that you played, we have concerns around NGCDF. And he proposed a 10 billion for NGCDF, a fund that receives almost 61.5 billion for this financial year to all the 290 constituencies, and that money is distributed unevenly based on poverty issues, population, etc. on the formula, right? His constituency, which is Kiharu, is one of those constituencies among the top 3 that receive between 221.5 million and 202 million. So already there's a challenge there. If you say 10 billion out of 61, what is the formula of this distribution? Which constituencies will you stifle? And of course, the needs of the constituencies are also different, which is partly why Kiharu keeps topping up for the best performing, because of course he's getting more money. And he also knows how to use that money. Like if you have TVETs, that you therefore train young people there and they're able to make cabro, then that cabro is used locally. And he mentioned it in his speech yesterday, and he said that in our constituency, all public primary schools look like, private schools. They look like high-end schools. And that is very true, because some of us have gone to Kiharu to see what is happening. But moving that at a national scale, I think, is a challenge. Mm-hmm. One of the challenges is a financing model, which he proposed. The second thing that he said is that counties are going to produce 10 billion. On what premise? How? Because what you are calling free secondary education is not county function. So on what premise will governors give you whatever 10 billion divided by 47, whatever hundreds of millions, to go and finance a function which is theirs, which is not theirs? It's not going to happen. And which is why I thought that there should have been a better thought around how we transfer functions and ensure that governments work together, all the 48 governments, the one national and the 47 county governments. Then, of course, he mentioned that national government would produce 15 billion. Again, the question around the mechanisms. How will it happen? So which ministries are going to be stifled to be able to get an additional 15 billion? When education, we already know, that is is the only top beneficiary in the budget that was read for 2026, 2027 at 781.3 billion. So those are details that probably his team are working on. Okay. But from the face value, there are technical grounding foundational challenges of functions, of budget reviews, the reforms around that, among others. Okay. Of course, on health, my colleagues have already charmed quite effectively on it, but I agree with Beatrice that moving forward, not just for Mheshimiwa Ndindi Nyoro, but for all the other aspirants who will then turn into candidates, can we have a clear mechanism of preventive promotive? The president is speaking to the nation the whole day. He's been speaking the whole day on this Kenya Health Summit thing, and I think he's concluded a town hall at KICC on health. But we are still not seeing the connection between preventive promotive and the curative bit. So we have a lot of budget that is being done for curative so that we deal with the chronic illnesses, but we are not putting a lot of emphasis and effort and investment in preventing them. Mm-hmm. Yeah? So we talk about community health promoters, we are going to pay them, but are we investing in training them? What are the symptoms and signs, basic signs of cancer? What sort of cancer? Are we investing effectively in proper, referrals? We are having a number of, referral hospitals right now, but are we helping to strengthen the referral system so that we know that X health facility is where you can be able to get whatever services? We still have people struggling with understanding SHA and SHIF. The president has just been explaining the other at KICC what that means, But are we investing in helping the Kenyan citizen understand that there are basic things that we can be able to do to prevent even the necessity of getting to SHA and SHIF? Okay. Because I think that is where a lot of money is going into, whereas if we can be able to invest, especially in training of the community health promoters, increasing the numbers, because there's a specific model and structure that they use. But I still believe that there are still gaps, particularly around the clear understanding of the kind of diseases. Because even when you get to our counties, different counties have different diseases manifesting in them. 2 weeks ago with the Council of Governors, we were in Garissa for what is called the Devolution Sensitization Workshop week. And if you look at the kind of diseases that were presenting at outreaches that were done within the different sub-counties in Garissa and the issues that the doctors were dealing with, basic things that we can be able to do, maternal child health, visiting a health facility when you're expectant. We still have in this country, when we are talking about curative, basic issues like visiting a health facility when you're pregnant, going through the antenatal, it's called antenatal care, so that you do not lose your child at the point of birth. And there are things that I think, that I believe that if we have proper leaders like Mheshimiwa Ndindi, breaking them down and ensuring that we understand, because those are the things, in my view, Noah, that will make sense to the common mama mboga, common mama down there.
Okay.
Not these big monies, not doctor, citizen engagement. That's too technical, it's too high level for where the services are supposed to be delivered. And Mheshimiwa Ndindi, I believe, is engaged with this at the budget process, at the health, in Parliament. He's engaged with this at the point of policy drafting with the Kenya Kwanza and President William Ruto. But when it comes to now breaking it so that the common citizen understands it, I think that was one of the biggest misses in the speech that he made.
Okay. Well, quite detailed right there. Now, we have around 10 minutes to wrap this up. But I'm glad that we are getting enough time to express ourselves. So in this last round, gentlemen, I'm trying to figure out, because most of the times when we look at our history, at least as a country, what happened in 2007, for example, which was quite sad, and many people argue it's the imbalance between the politics of the day and the development agenda or implementation, where you find that a leader might really implement, but if you don't handle the politics, as people call it, the ground of the day, then re-election becomes difficult. We've seen that with some members of parliament, some who've been given one term because they did a good job, but they were like, people will see my good job and then they'll re-elect me, and apparently that's not the case. So for the 2027 general election, from this precedent that we are seeing with the likes of Ndindi, I know, Ramogi, you've said intelligence is not helping you, but
intelligence leaks.
Leaks.
Yeah, because he's giving us NIS leaks, not an agenda.
Ramogi has definitely ground.
But going back to the question, when we see this precedence of agenda and balance off with the politics of the ground that we just earlier on tackled, the Goonism culture that is on the rise, what do you think wins the day in 2027? Is it a merge of the two, or do we still have the traditional way that you have to do politics on the ground? Briefly.
That's a very political question, but let me respond to something my colleague said. Ndugu, if you go to the 4th schedule of the Constitution of Kenya, I see you have a copy. It talks about the distribution of functions between the national government and the county government.
Yes, that's what it is.
Absolutely. I want to direct your attention to point number 29 under the national government, which is part 1. And there, it talks about agricultural policy.
It's a policy, it's not implementation.
Absolutely. You had mentioned, no, allow me, the floor is mine. You had mentioned, I waited until it got to me, I did not interrupt you.
Yeah, but
I don't want to be a comma bay. You had mentioned that agricultural policy is also devolved. And that's what I wanted to clarify, that as much as we want to poke holes into strategic direction, agricultural policy is still a national function. And part of the drive that we are pushing is that there be at least 25% of your budget going into agriculture. What we expect is that there is some sort of specific grant to counties. I don't know how you guys call it, so that then counties can spend towards agriculture and we can develop it further. But now coming back to your question.
Let me clarify, because
allow me to come to his question. We only have 10 minutes.
So that we deal with that, because we have people watching us.
Protect me from Kevin Masido.
We have
to protect Ramogi, but you will have your right of response.
Thank you very much. This is not Omabe. That will be
my point.
And the question that you asked concerning the politics of the day, one of the challenges we've had, those of us who are professionals, is that politicians know that the agenda does not win votes. The drama does, and the sloganeering does. Let me give you an example. When you look at bottom-up, at that time it was not called bottom-up economic transformation agenda. It was called bottom-up economic model. But when you look at it, it is not an economic model. There is no economic model like that. It was an approach to economic development by the Grameen Bank in Pakistan, that Nobel-winning guy. And that became some sort of an approach to development. But it is not an economic model. And then now, even after they got to government economists told them, this is not an economic model, but let's call it economic transformation agenda, so that the president's dream still comes to play. But did it win votes? It won votes. It made for some very good sloganeering. And so even now, I know my colleague Ndindi Nyoro has done a splendid job. I also know the other guys will come up with very good manifestos, but they will not win votes. Unfortunately, our people still look at the drama for some reason. Let me ask you, what is the agenda, the economic agenda of Rigathi Gachagua? No one knows. But is he popular? Absolutely. He's very popular. What is the economic agenda of some of these people you see running around? No one knows, but they are very popular because Kenyans love drama and slogans. So as much as Ndindi has done a good job,
yes,
I doubt if that will be sufficient for him to even get close to the presidency, leave alone being a president. However, it is necessary that we start that conversation so that we shift our population in that direction.
All right. Thank you very much. 2027, who's carrying the day? Is it sloganeering, as Ramogi puts it, or now it's agenda-based? Where are we?
It's going to be agenda-based. Why? June 25th, 2024, the Gen Z uprising, the Maandamano, the famous one, changed the trajectory of this country. And that is why they are going to hold even someone like Rigathi Gachagua. What is your agenda? I'm on the ground myself in Nyeri Town constituency. And one of the things the electorate is saying, hii kiti ya mbunge ni muhimu sana. This role of an MP, we have realized it's actually everything. And this time around, they're saying, we want to hear, what will you do for us? Don't come lying to us or shaking your behind and telling us that you're going to vote. So the Gen Z, because of the finance bill, reject finance bill. Then they come to Jan 25th, 2025. Those movements have awakened the Kenyan psyche. We are not yet there yet, but it is a starting point. So going forward, and that is why Ndindi Nyoro is bringing a best foot forward and saying, this is my agenda, this is what I would want to do. And that is why every time you hear William Ruto telling the opposition, hamuna agenda, nyinyi hamuna agenda, hamuna plan. And that is why you are now finding people, sisi ndio Sifuna, they're asking Sifuna, what will you do for Kenyan citizens? Remember, If we keep on looking at slogans, it is us who are going to end up being jobless. It is us who are going to pay more money for education very expensively. Education ends up being for the rich. It is us who are going to bury our own people because they cannot access healthcare. It is us who are not going to afford food because we followed slogans. So I believe in 2027, as much as there's a lot of slogans and all the dancing and all that, when the Kenyan citizen goes back into their house, they'll ask themselves, who has a better agenda for healthcare? Who has a better agenda for education, food security, jobs, and even the justice system? As I finalize, I do not like this thing of zoning of political parties. And one of the ideology I'm selling is this. Political parties will not do the job. It is those individuals that you're going to vote. Many individuals who are incompetent hide behind political parties. And when they enter into parliament, they're not able to implement anything or execute anything or articulate anything. So I think this time around, the Kenyan citizens should awaken and realize, as much as, yes, you're telling us you're going to join in a vehicle, let's put the political parties to task. What is your ideology? What are you going to do for it? And that ideology, question it deeper. Who is going to pay? How are you going to execute it? And then now vote for the individual. So look at the individual and then look at the party. But if we go looking at the party, then the individual, we are going to go back again to where we started from, where the rain started beating us. And again, in 2028, there will be another maandamano, saying reject Finance Bill 2028.
Okay, definitely. Osita, I know you had some rejoinder or some rebuttal.
You know, what Mheshimiwa Ramogi is doing is what I love to do, which is what I do every day. Interpreting this constitution is a match he knows he cannot win if he were to pit it on a match. This constitution says, part 2, on schedule 4, county governments. The functions and powers of the county are agriculture, including crop and animal husbandry, livestock sale yards, county abattoirs, plant and animal disease control, and fisheries. It ends there. You go to what is reading, it says the functions of the national government. So he read 29 is agriculture policy. It ends there.
Absolutely.
Which is what I'm saying. Agriculture is fully devolved except the policy. That's which is the. Let me, no, now you see you are doing the same thing I was doing.
Go back and
Number 2, let me proceed. Number 2, Schedule 4, 26 says national government is health policy. Full stop. It ends there. Go to, let me, part 2, county governments. It says county health services, including in particular county health facilities and pharmacies, ambulance services, promotion of primary health care, licensing and controlling of undertaking that sell food to the public, veterinary services, excluding regulation of the profession, which is part of the policy, cemetery, funeral parlors, crematoria, and refuse removal, many things. You notice the difference?
Yes.
Agriculture is fully devolved. If you look at the functions that have been given to the counties and what the national government budget on agriculture, that is what has been budgeted for. Those monies are not policies. The policy, for example, what it means would be like seeds. We cannot have all 47 counties having their own seeds production. What if one crosses one geographical location to another? Number 2 is research. We can't have counties having their own research aspects. So national government has to regulate the kind of policy that we have for agriculture, among many things. It's something that Ramogi knows we can go over and over.
Definitely.
For me, 2027
Yes.
is a track record election. And if we go the track record way, Ndindi Nyoro will have as many votes as you can imagine. This is a gentleman who, in my view, the only thing he needs to do is to show how come, despite NGCDF and Kiharu being different from the other counties, whatever little he is receiving, how has he been able to transform the public sector of education, of health? Because those are the two things that I believe matter critically to the common citizen. How has he been able to make it easy for every family to have their kids go to school without paying? He mentioned yesterday that in Kiharu, I think it's 500 shillings that you pay, which is what happens in Muranga. Kiharu constituency is in Muranga County, right? If you look at Kangata Care, which is part of the subsidy of what is happening in Kiharu, why is it not happening in Siaya, where I come from, that we have to struggle with public health education? I mean, public education and with public health care. So if Ndindi Nyoro can be able to clearly break his track record, remember he's also been he's been winning as one of the top 3 MPs other than Embakasi East, Babu Owino. They're always interchanging. Either it is Ndindi Nyoro, Babu Owino, Ndindi Nyoro. If he can be able to break down that for the common citizen and show how that track record plays with the politics of the day. This is an election where I do not think that your tribe is going to matter. I do not think that your political party is going to matter. When the rubber meets the road, there are individuals who've done very well that might even go through an independent ticket, because the Constitution also allows you to do that. So if Ndindi Nyoro can be able to show what he's been able to do critically and clearly, that track record, it will save him. I liked Noah what he spoke about corruption yesterday, because he also addressed corruption. Okay. We have Kenya Vision 2060. We cannot go to Singapore if we continue to steal and hide public money. And Ndindi Nyoro spoke about it yesterday. So if he's able to break down his NGCDF and prove to Kenyans that he didn't steal a coin, why not?
Definitely. Gents, our time is up. Totally. No, you guys, both of you want to have the last word. And it's so fair.
Yes. Declaration says that African Union member governments must have 10% of their budgets in agriculture.
Exactly.
And I had said 25. That's the only correction.
That's amazing. Yours?
Agri. We need to move away from the Cabro illusion. Because
shiny things.
Yeah, because we're equating development to Cabro.
Okay.
And yet the lives of Kenyan citizens are not improving in any way.
All right, definitely. It's called Cabro illusion. What do we need to move away from, Osido?
As long as development will run in tandem with the context.
Okay.
If Cabro works in Muranga Kiharu, let's look for what works for them.
Okay.
Remember, he didn't just speak about Cabro. He spoke about TVETs and Cabro. We can't have young people who are skilled running around being mobilized by politicians when Cabro can give them money. Definitely. Cabro gives you money, do Cabro.
Definitely. I hope you're all satisfied now. We've communicated conclusively as we hoped. But this is a conversation that is ongoing as we head towards the election. I'm glad that we were able to unpack and give our views, and I really do appreciate it. Mr. Sido, the carrier of the Constitution of Kenya, always with the hard copy. You never know, the phone might go off. We have Beatrice Kairu, who's saying we have to get away from the illusion of Cabros. What a word. And Odhiambo Ramogi, the corrector of himself. Thank you very much. Really appreciate. My name is. But thank you very much. Really appreciate, gentlemen and lady. My name is Nokip Kimboy. That's where I put a full stop to this conversation tonight. Have yourself a good night. Bye bye for now.